Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's video. I decided to do a crystal gazing video this week, and I'm kind of cutting it down to the wire because I always usually do these more towards like the middle of the week. And this week I ended up having my back go out over the actually happened last Sunday when the other one was being uploaded that week. And I'm still kind of suffering from the fallout from that. Hello, Neo. You come to say hi. Um, and so basically, I'm going to try to do this as quickly as possible because my back is very bad today, and but I do want to record this so that it can get up and go out on the normal time that I always put it out on. And I did have to take some kind of a muscle relaxer because it really hurts to even just sit here in the chair. And so I'm probably going to start getting kind of drowsy or sleepy. So I figured I'd better record this before going any more forward. So we're gonna get the crystals up and then we'll start going through it. Okay, so in this crystal vision, there appears to be a radiant jester right in here. This, if you see the shape inside of here, you will kind of see it looks like a jester type character dancing, and there's a sword coming out of his hand on this side, a light sword. And then over here, he seems to be wielding a flag that is white with a orange strip on it. So he dances at the center of the scene. Before him stands and then over on this side stands a donkey, right? There is like a donkey faced character over here, and he's humanoid looking, and it looks like he's cutting the legs off the donkey. And then over here in this little thing, I found it looks like some kind of a he's he's a chubby little figure. He's wise looking on the surface. He has like a blazing third eye. And yeah, his sword slips from his grasp. His sword's kind of falling down here. And it's falling away. While behind him is a pile down here, is a pile of pink and blue crystals down here by his feet. And so what I feel is like this being here and this other being over here. Um, is kind of like charlatans or buffoons or something like that. This guy's definitely a buffoon looking character. And so the vision carries a clear warning to be watchful of charlatans and buffoons in the spiritual community. I feel like it has a lot to do with the spiritual community. Some twist the message of the new earth, selling enlightenment, as if it were a commodity. They seek followers, fame, and fortune rather than embodying true wisdom. They control platforms, retreats, and gatherings, making seekers believe they need luxury packages to evolve. But the fool, the sacred gesture, the guy in the middle, tells a different story. He reminds us to use discernment, to recognize false light, and to walk the quiet path of authenticity. Real growth is not bought or sold, it is lived. This message here is simple. Don't waste your time and energy on pretenders. True wisdom shines through humility, joy, and genuine service. So I just want to go through a little bit more. I want to unpack a little bit more and go because these figures, these three figures that came out in the crystal, are all figures that go with what you call it with the the tarot as well. So we're gonna go through the key figures and the symbolism in the whole vision. So first of all, we have the sword of light, which this dude is the gesture is carrying, the fool. Represents clarity, truth, and the ability to cut through illusions. The white flag with the orange stripe over here. White is peace and surrender. Orange is creativity, desire, and sometimes ego or power. Together, it suggests a paradox, a peaceful surrender, but also a warning about ego creeping into spiritual expression. The gesture archetype, traditionally the fool in the tarot. The fool is not a fool in the mundane sense, but the sacred trickster who reveals truth by laughing at false authority. Here, the gesture exposes the pretenders. We have the donkey horse character, the humanoid being. Hybrids of man and beast often symbolize basic instincts, stubbornness, or misused strength. So, this is a being, I believe, that is somebody that is using their strength, their power, their wisdom, and they're misusing it. And so being caught by the sword suggests the exposing of clearing of stubborn ego-driven forces that parade as wisdom, but are actually really hollow. And then we have the chubby character with the radiant third eye. His wisdom seems false or corrupted. He has a bright third eye, the illusion of vision and enlightenment, but his sword slips away. He cannot act with integrity. The pile of blue and pink crystals suggests commodification of healing, selling spirituality as a product. Instead of using them in service, they are props or possessions. And the falling sword that he has in his hand indicates loss of true spiritual authority, suggests that those who sell enlightenment without embodiment will eventually drop their weapon. Their influence will falter. So, the message about this for the spiritual community is that charlatans and buffoons, the donkey headed figure and the overconfident chubby one, show how some present themselves as enlightened but are really performers, entertainers, or sellers. 5-star retreats and fame. The crystals at the feet symbolizes wealth, material gain tied to spiritual branding, which we have a lot of that in our community. The gesture's warning. True wisdom often comes in unexpected forms. Humble laughing at pretension. The fool carries divine wisdom that cannot be sold, but must be lived and embodied. The core symbolic message. Discernment. Don't be dazzled by appearances, bright crystals, polished retreats, charismatic influencers. The quiet path. The fool's wisdom points to inner alignment, humility, and authenticity, not flashy packaging. Exposure of false light. The sword of truth cuts through the show of pseudo enlightenment. And then the return to simplicity. Real spiritual growth doesn't require buying expensive packages. It requires walking your own path with sincerity. And then if you actually look at these characters as the tarot archetypes, because they each hold an archetype, the fool is the gesture is the fool. Not naive, but wise in simplicity. He dances freely with a light heart, showing that truth and joy reveal more than pretense ever can. He embodies authentic spiritual growth. The magician, which is the chubby character, the one down below, with a bright third eye, but a falling sword reflects the magician in reverse. Someone who manipulates appearances using spiritual tools for show or profit, but without true mastery or integrity. And then this character over here, the Hierophant. The donkey-headed being symbolizes false teachers and rigid authorities who claim to hold the keys to enlightenment, but lead others astray. The sword cutting through him is a rejection of false hierarchies and dogmas. Together, these archetypes tell a powerful story. The fool's light-hearted wisdom exposes the false magician and the corrupted hierophant. Hierophant, I can't say that word. The message is clear. Walk your path with discernment. True wisdom is simple, humble, and embodied, while false light seeks control and profit, and it can be kind of confusing. I don't know if you've ever listened to somebody doing a channeled message, but sometimes when I listen to a channeled message and then I get done listening to it, I think to myself, what the hell did they just say? Because it's all like really like doesn't even feel like it's like way up there. It's not embodied. It's just kind of just information. And when I get done listening sometimes to some people that are channeling messages, I kind of think to myself, what the heck did they just talk about? Because like I have no idea. Um, so the crystal is telling you, watch out for false performers. True New Earth teachers won't sell you enlightenment. They embody it quietly, humbly, and joyfully. And so then I wanted to just talk a little bit about my path and how I walk the quiet path. Okay. And this is how a lot of people that are out there walking the quiet path, they're not on show. Yes, I do have a YouTube channel, but I have hardly anybody following it. I don't do monetizations or anything like that. And I just kind of put a video up, and if someone sees it, they sees it. If they don't, they don't. I just try to help people, but I also don't put things out until I understand them as and embody it myself. Like, I also have written a book, but it took me a few years and I had embodied and worked with the stuff before I kind of like wrote it down to share with other people. So when I look back at this vision in this crystal, I see the fool standing as a guide for all of us. He shows us the sword of discernment, truth that cuts through illusion. He carries the flag of surrender and fire, reminding us to stay humble but never dim our spark. This is the message. Use discernment. Be open, but don't be naive. Surrender your ego, but not your sovereignty. Because right now, much of the spiritual world has become a marketplace. I know this from my own journey. The jester-like figure dancing, a long sword in one hand and in the other, a white flag with an orange stripe. This stuck out to me right at the beginning. I just saw it right when I first kind of like peered and glanced at the image. It stuck out before I saw the other things. Together, the fool is playful yet wise, carrying the sword of discernment and a flag of surrender infused with fire. White for peace, humility, and openness. Orange for vitality, creativity, the courage to live our truth. Together, they whisper, be open, but do not lose your spark. Surrender ego, but not your sovereignty. Hold discernment lightly but firmly. And as I sat with this image, I began to contemplate what's happening in the spiritual community right now. So much of what calls itself spiritual has become a marketplace. Retreats priced like luxury vacations. Podcasts and platforms dominated by the same voices, the ones who sell the best, the loudest teachers, the flashiest programs, the biggest promises. And yet, behind the scenes, there are the quiet ones. People walking their talk, living the teachings, working with the land, and embodying the light. I work very quietly with the land, and I don't usually tell anyone what I'm doing. But for years, I've been going around placing andaras into waterways and helping, trying to bring in the crystalline energy. I go for long walks in the forest, and I spend a lot of time singing and bringing the light into the earth. I go out and I go into my bare feet and I walk in figure 8 formations with my crystal, and I sing and I bring light into the earth, into the area where I live. But I don't tell anybody about what I do. I don't make a point to show it off or try to get people to do things the way that I do it. I sit with the earth and I contemplate, and I'm just there, just being with the earth. And people that do this kind of work, that are walking the path quietly, they don't have slick brands or marketing funnels. They're not being invited onto the big podcasts because what they have to say probably doesn't sell. Because most people that are walking the quiet path are chopping wood and carrying water, and they're living it, they're embodying it. And so they're overshadowed, voiceless, while hype rises to the top. And when I looked at the fool with the sword, I realized this is the message: discernment. Discernment for seekers and also for those of us who hold the light. I learned this the hard way. In 2024, I tried to create a retreat here in Ireland. The land here is magical, alive with ancient energies and sacred waters. I envisioned a farmhouse gathering where we could do grid work, visit sacred sites. It was very simple. The retreat was called I Am Light Retreat. I am the light. And the whole retreat was going to be focusing on working with the land and finding the light from within, taking time out, spending time with others who also are finding that spark inside of themselves and sharing stories. At first, I was very excited, and there was a lot of people interested when I started talking about it. But as the time passed, the climate shifted. We went from it was my idea to do this was when we were all in the middle of the big hype during the lockdowns, and everybody was trying to um they were all going on to webinars and different things like that, and people were trying to gather, and everybody was really excited. They're like, oh, I would love that when this lockdown is over with to go to Ireland and do a retreat with you. That would be so cool and everything. But as the time passed, the climate shifted and retreats became commodities. People told me, raise your price. People won't think it's worth it if it's too low. But this didn't feel right to me. I decided to keep it affordable so that it wasn't just people that had money could come to it. And I also knew that people that were interested were people like me that didn't have huge money to spend on a big, huge luxury vacation. And I knew that some of them would also have to get airfare to get here. And so I tried to keep it so that it was not so expensive, but it also would cover the cost of renting the farmhouse. And at the same time that I put this retreat out to the world, scandals about cult like leaders broke out. They were all over. There was documentaries. There was a couple of them on Prime. There was some on the Netflix. And there was also some on YouTube where people were being kind of brought out of what they were doing. And suspicion spread. And in the end, no one actually booked my retreat because I had shut down my Facebook group after learning about these people that were running these cult like groups, which is a lot of what's going on in our spiritual community. I left my YouTube and I went quiet. Not because my work wasn't real, but because I didn't want to be swept into the noise or mistaken for something I wasn't. Because I did not align with what a lot of people were doing. I had been working with people doing workshops and groups and things and some stuff on Facebook in my Facebook group. And I noticed that some things were happening where I would tell people what I was working through. Like I remember I was working through there was one point I was working with the cellular repair and regeneration program. And I was telling people how I was doing it and how I was learning how to use the light infusion and go into the cells. And there was one person in particular who was working where I thought was my friend and actually turned my what I was doing, and all of a sudden they were doing it and they ran with it. Like they didn't even try it out. I was just telling this person that I was working with it myself. I wasn't trying to go out and teach it to people anyways, because I believe that I needed to be embodied. I needed to see if this actually worked before I like went out and started telling people how to do it. I had to do it for myself first and see if this was really something, and that I was being guided to do it. And this person ran off with it and created their own kind of masterclass thing around it. And they started bringing out this, what I was teaching, but they changed it in slightly a different way. And they started charging, they made a huge amount of money off from it. And I didn't make any money because I had to learn a lesson as well. There was a lesson of discernment that when I'm working with something that's coming through, like I'm working on stuff even that I'm not telling anybody about because I want to embody it first before I bring it out to the public. And I learned that I need to be quiet and stay quiet and embody the work, body the information, and body what's coming to me before sharing. And then during the time of silence that I turned inward. I began doing quiet land work, sitting on the riverbanks and on the hilltops, gritting light into the waters, into the soil. And I just anchored and I just lived in the now. I called in the higher crystalline light and started weaving it into the earth. I let the earth recalibrate me as I offered my own light back. No social media, no fanfare, just presence. I literally stopped. I found myself stopping. I used to do lots of video blogs where I would come in. Hold on, now I've got people coming in my house. I just need to push pause for a second. I can figure that out. No, sorry about that. Now, my brother-in-law came in. My husband made some shepherd's pie for them upstairs, people that live upstairs. And now I've totally and completely lost what I was talking about. And I can't even remember what I was going to say. So I'm just going to kind of move forward a little bit. And I think I was talking a little bit about social media, doing things. I think, oh, I know what I was going to say. So, I used to video blog everything. Like every time I would go down to the forest, I started doing that during the lockdown because I thought it would be nice because I lived in Ireland and I was going down to the forest and it would be nice just to kind of share things and I would do like card pulls and all that and I would just kind of talk and everything and I would share everything, right? And when I did this, when I stopped going off there and I was just being present, I stopped feeling like I had to record everything. Like I had to like tell everybody everything that I was doing and what was going on. And I mean, I went a whole year without even, I didn't even want to record anything. I was going for walks and doing all the stuff that I was doing before, but I wasn't putting it up on and telling people that I was doing it or whatever. And because I started kind of going inward and sharing it, I started following this path and the magic started returning. The magic started returning inside of me. And I did so much and I ended up, writing the book and I embodied all of the information, what I was doing. And I just found that I didn't need to do that anymore. In fact, when it was time to actually start going back to sharing videos, I was very, very hesitant because I didn't want to go back. I didn't want to get back stuck into this crutch where I was focusing on putting up videos and getting followers and all of that kind of stuff. I learned that all of that stuff didn't matter. It mattered about living in the now, in the here and now, in the quietness of my thoughts, in the quietness of what was happening inside. And I remember when the guides were saying you have to start sharing again, teaching again, and starting up the whole thing with the social media. I remember hearing a voice and they said, you don't have, you've learned a lot. You learned a lot from the last time when you did this. You learned a lot from that. And you're not going to go back and make the same mistakes. And now I'll put up a video and I don't even go back to see if anybody looked at it. A lot of times I have to every now and then remind myself to go check to see if I need to answer like a comment or something or whatever. I put it up and I let it go. And I find myself, I don't spend time scrolling. I spend more time just living my life. And this summer, uh, I had five of us got together and we met in Glastonbury. And it was amazing. There was no plan. We didn't plan like a 5-star retreat. We actually like basically decided to meet it with the whole thing started with one of my friends. It was her 60th birthday, and she always wanted to have a fairy tea party and dress up and just kind of be with the elements and just enjoy life. And she said that she never got to do that when she was younger. So now when she's turning 60, she would like to have this. And so we all ended up she was going to like rent a venue, a place for us to stay. And then we ended up finding a friend that we had already met when we were in Glastonbury before. And we asked could we stay at her place. And she lived in this place that was not in it was in Somerset, but it was like a 20-minute drive to Glastonbury town. And we ended up having the most amazing weekend. The house was like an old Beltane cottage. It had a thatched roof on it. It was amazing, the energy inside of this house. There was an old, like ancient, like well that was like in front of her house. She had set it up so that we could all have our own privacy. So myself and my friend Geraldine, who flew over from Ireland, we stayed in the camper van, or I guess what they call it. It's a motorhome, like, and oh my God, it brought back so many memories for me because as a child, I we used to have a camp with a camp. We called it camper. In America, they would call it a camper. Over here, they would call it a caravan, I guess. But we had this camper and we had this seasonal site in this place called Forest Lake up in Chuxton, New York. And that was my happy place. I just loved being there at our camp and being in the RV. And I was just kind of like, this gave me a chance to kind of feel that again. My times when we used to stay there. And so I was quite excited and happy to be staying in this RV. And I really enjoyed being in that. And then one of the girl that lived there, she had put up an old, like a big, huge, I guess it would be kind of like one of those tents that you would have for glamping, like for my other two friends. And they were staying in there in the tent because they were only staying one. I think did they stay 2 nights? I think they stayed 2 nights, and Geraldine and I stayed 5 nights, I think. We stayed 5 nights, yeah. Because we were flying over and they were already living in England and they just drove up for the Saturday and the Sunday, but Geraldine and I flew in on Wednesday night and we flew out on Monday morning or Monday afternoon or something like that. And so there was no plan other than we knew that it was my friend Linda's birthday, and we knew that she had rented, or not rented, she had booked the White Springs healing pools for that Sunday for an hour. So we knew we had um, that one place, and so we didn't really have a plan other than I wanted to give a gift to my friend for her birthday. So I wanted to run a light infusion circle. Like, I thought that would be a lot of fun. And so when I got there was totally unexpected. My friend Geraldine, she came and she brought she had this amazing crystal bottle. It was bigger than this crystal that I'm using here. It was about as bigger in your hand. It was a bigger ball. It was magical. And the first night Geraldine brought that out, and she says, "Oh, Geraldine's a shaman." And she says, "Oh, I just bring that whenever I'm doing work with the land, and I just kind of put it somewhere, and it's my land crystal. But if you girls would like to sleep with it or play with it or do anything with it, you can." So the first night we got there, I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna hold this." And Gemma, the girl that we were staying with, she was like, we were sitting at the table inside the RV, and she was like, "Oh my God, I see this and I see that." And Gemma never saw anything in the crystals before. And and then I slept with it. Gemma was going to sleep with it, but then she said no, she wouldn't be able to sleep that night because it would be too much for her. So I kind of just put this under my pillow and I just kind of slept with it. They say not to sleep with a crystal if you're not used to it because it can make it so you can't sleep. And because it'll just start activating things and amplifying things. And so I slept with the crystal, and then I saw like all of these like images, and I started crystal gazing, and I saw I saw I saw the tour, and it was the day that we were actually, it was the next morning, Geraldine and I were going to walk up to the tour. Because I said, I can't be in Glastonbury and not go up to the tour. And so I had and there's a whole video I have of my experience that happened when I climbed the tower. So if you'd like to go to, you should go back and listen to that video. In fact, I might tag it onto the end of this video so that you could watch it. And it tells the story about my initiation. I'll just quickly tell that I ended up having an experience. I saw a whole scene in the crystal ball, and then the whole scene played out while I was climbing the side of the hillside going up to the tour, and it ended up being a big huge initiation. And Yeshua was like in the thing with my wings, and it's a whole big thing. You can go back and listen to that. So that started out the weekend. And then the next day, and then that day I also got to meet with my friend, the one that she helped me create my book cover. And we had a really lovely evening inside the town of Glastonbury. We sat outside in front of an ice cream shop. Then we had ice cream, and then we ended up, when that place closed, we had to like move off the sidewalk. We ended up going out to dinner, and then I was really tired after having my big initiation experience at the on the hill at the tour thing. And then we went back to Gemma's house, and then the next day was the day that we were supposed to meet my friend Linda and her friend in Avaberry, because we had already knew that we were going to be placing the last Andara into the third. Avaberry is the third chamber of the heart chakra, and Linda and I had already placed an Andara in the Glastonbury in the what is it called, the chalice wells. And my friend Geraldine, who was with me, she had helped me. We had put the Andara back in 2019 in the Hill of Tara. We did some work there with the Andara. So we wanted to finish off this work for the three chambers of the heart chakra. So the plan was that we're meeting Linda and her friend, and Gemma, myself, her husband John, and and Geraldine, we all met in Avebury, and we had our little bit of experience in Avebury, and we placed the Andara into that place. And so like that was all kind of finished, that work with the chambers of the heart and all that. And then we went back to Gemma's house and we had dinner, we had food, and then it was the next day was the day for Linda's party. And it was really hot. And so we just kind of like sat around. We didn't really go anywhere or do anything. Gemma went into Glastonbury and she got us these, I'll get them. She got us all because it was Linda's birthday and she wanted a fairy tea party. And so we ended up getting, I'm going to put this, I'm going to take the crystal off. There we go. So while I'm telling the story, and Gemma got us all elfin ears. Let me see. Let me see. We'll put one on. Let me see if I can get it on. And so we put these on for fun to kind of like dress up. And I ended up having, I made this headband out of crystals and I put my hair all up with my curls and we had our elven ears on for the dinner part. And we had a lot of fun. That was fun. And I think, will I leave them on? I can leave them on for a little bit. And so we did that. And that was, I mean, none of this was planned. And then what we do, we ended up having food. We ended up having a really nice meal. And we ended up I said, let's do a light infusion circle. And we all like Gemma and Gemma had this all these like singing bowls, you know, like the crystal bowls, and she had drums and gongs and these things that went tinkle 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 and chinkle 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 chinkle. All this stuff. And so we got all set up outside. We took all of our pillows and blankets and everything, and we sat underneath this, I think it was a maple tree. And we did about 5 hours. We did light infusion circle, and everybody had a chance. I might actually share a little bit right here where we all had a chance to kind of lay, and I'll just maybe just put some images of us at the circle, and it was or at our light infusion circle, and we just had such a great, really good time, and a lot of like information came in for us, and it was kind of amazing. And then after that, Gemma's husband he put a fire pit out for us. And we sat, I think, until like 2 o'clock in the morning. We sat outside and just talked and we watched the stars, and there was like orbs and stuff going all over the place, and we were just having the greatest conversations and just spending time in the now with people, and it was so much fun. And then the next day we went into Glastonbury to the White Springs for this hour that we had by ourselves inside we could do a ceremony, and we all went in, and of course, none of it could be recorded because you can't use any recording devices in there, which is fine. And so we had all done like this amazing work together the night before. And then the next day, we all stood in. There was a pool that was only like I think knee deep as well. I don't think it went up any higher than the knees. And we all kind of like stood in there in a circle, and we just naturally started toning, and it we everybody it just kept going for like about 10 minutes. Nobody really talked, we just toned, and it actually felt like we were in some kind of like acoustic chamber. The energy got like really high, and my son didn't. Sorry about that. I can't just keep cutting and splicing every time. So we went in, and we were singing light language. I was doing all kinds of things when I was fixing all kinds of like holes and tears in my auric field and stuff. And while we were singing, though, we were bringing in this energy, and it was guttural. It was primal. It was nothing that any of us ever felt before. And it was only 10 minutes or so, but it was, after talking to some of them afterwards, one of the most amazing experiences that any of us had ever been through. And I saw a white phoenix fly down right towards the end of it. And I saw this, like I think it was a star mother. She went around to each one of us and she did something to our foreheads like this. And then she telepathically said, "You are all star mothers. You are all representatives. And um, what you did here was you brought in this crystalline, high vibrational light. Together, we brought it in to the heart chakra of the earth." And it was amazing. And then I was talking to one of the other ladies, and she had had in her light infusion circle, there was a big heart that came down in front of her. Well, she said that the heart that came down in front of her was also there, and she got this message that a lot of people come to those healing pools, the white springs, for healing for themselves, or like they come to take. And she said that we were one of the first ones. She felt like they were so happy because we came and we gave. We didn't take anything. We gave back to that space. And it just was like, really, it was magical. It was a magical experience. So what happened, the experiences that we had were beyond words. It was like otherworldly. It was simple. It was sincere. We didn't have a five-star retreat planned. We didn't spend a lot of money. In fact, Geraldine and I went to the store the night that we got there, that we flew in, and we got a loaf of bread, and we got some stuff to put into our sandwiches. We made for sandwiches, and Geraldine had tins of beans and ramen noodles and stuff like that. And we just ate with what we had, and we didn't spend a lot of money like going out to eat and stuff. And we had a great time. So it reminded me that the sacred comes alive when we show up authentically and together. We don't need someone to organize our spiritual lives for us. We don't need to pay thousands for an orchestrated experience. And now I see clearly the big podcasts, the flashy retreats, the hype. Much of it is just that, hype. It's not real. Some of it carries agendas to sell, to manipulate, and to profit. And yet, the quiet ones, the little ones, we're all still here. We're still living our lives. We're embodying what we teach, even without the spotlight. This is the true revolution. This is how the new earth is seated. I'm going to put up the crystal again. See if it come up again. There we go. The fool's sword cuts through the illusion. The white flag with the orange stripe invites us to surrender ego to surrender our ego, but keep our fire. The path forward is not more spectacle, not to be on show, but more sincerity. We are pilgrims, not performers. We are learning that true power is not in the spotlight, but in but not in, but in the soul, in small circles, in shared meals, in humble spaces. This is how we build the new earth, one step at a time, quietly, authentically, without fanfare. If you feel called, walk lightly, practice discernment, keep your sovereignty. Let your life be your teaching. Trust that those who need your work will find it. The quiet revolution has already begun. This is how we will get there. So, this is what I saw. This is what I saw in the crystal, and I felt that this was the message for humanity this week. Thank you for walking this journey with me today and for receiving this message. If this vision and story resonated with you, I'd love your support in helping the message of the quiet path reach more people. You can do this in 3 simple ways. First, share this video with someone you feel would benefit from hearing it. A friend, a community, anyone who may need the reminder to walk lightly and discern wisely. Second, if you enjoyed this, sign up for my newsletter. I always send out an email whenever I upload a new video, so you won't miss a transmission. And third, if you feel called to go deeper, I offer personal crystal gazing readings where I tune into your unique path and bring through messages and imagery just for you. You'll find a link to that below. Together, step by step, we can seed the new earth quietly, sincerely, and joyfully. The Fool reminds us real wisdom is lived, not sold. Thank you for being here, and thank you for walking this path with me. Until next time, walk lightly and keep your flame alive. Sending you much love and much light. I hope you enjoyed this message.